You scared, Pat?
A little.
You scared, Pat? Because if you're scared,
little
go
bit.
to church. Rick Upchurch, that is.
Hey, feel I'm in the mood for a switch up. I hit the function, hit the rose till I hiccup. I hit the stage and leave with money that say stick up.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of Altitude Adjustment. And I would say arguably, but it's not even an argument. No. This is going to be the best show that we have ever done, and that is setting the bar incredibly high, but it is because we are joined by the legendary Rick Upchurch, the only Denver Bronco to ever be a part of two all-decades teams, and if you don't know, now you know. Rick, thank you so much for joining us to bask in the greatness of Rick Upchurch, the legend that you are. Thank you so much for your time, Rick. How you doing, man?
Hey, Mario. How you doing, man? It's an honor and a pleasure to be on your show, and thank you for having me. And Pat, hey, how you doing too, man? It's an honor and a pleasure to meet you as well. But you know what, Mario? You know, we have a lot of stories that we can tell. I mean, it's a long history that we can talk about, that's for sure. And I'm just glad to be on to be able to tell the story to you and Pat and the rest of the Bronco Nation out there.
Absolutely. And we're definitely going to get to the stories, Rick, but I know one of the reasons that you wanted to be on this show is you wanted to talk about the success of this team. Now, obviously, for anybody that doesn't know, your heyday was in the 70s and 80s, right? Like that was really the prime of Rick Upchurch. And those were really the times that the Broncos football was established. You know, before you were there, Rick, the Broncos were a little bit of a laughingstock, and you were one of those big pieces that really helped turn this franchise around. Now we fast forward to this year. We underwent the longest playoff drought in franchise history, and finally the boys are back. So you've been around the game your entire life for longer than any of us can conceive. Just talk about this past season, Rick. Like, what did you see that you liked, that you didn't like? What stood out to you? What was good? What needs to be better? Any way that you want to answer that question, fill Broncos country with your Rick Upchurch knowledge.
Well, you know, once again, I have to go back. You know, the Floyd Littles of the Bronco land, the Rich Jacksons and the Gene Mingos and those guys. Those are the guys that I looked up to back then because, you know, once again, the Broncos coming into the league back in the 60s and, you know, being an infant coming into the league at 60 and especially living in the Rocky Mountain region, right? There's nothing there. There's not ABC. There's not NBC. There's not CBS. So for the guys to be able to get some TV time, it was virtually impossible because, you know, once again, you had the East Coast, West Coast, and then you had the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and all those guys that were making all the noise, Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions. And so the Broncos, man, were sitting in the Rocky Mountains getting no exposure. But you still had some great ball players like Lionel Taylor. Lionel Taylor, one of the top receivers to ever play in the AFC and in the NFL, you know, catching 100 passes and 1,000 yards and that type of stuff, but never got the recognition that he should have gotten, right? And then you got Gene Mingo. He's the first African-American kicker, man, to kick in the league, for sure. He broke barriers in that whole deal, but you never heard about that. Marlon Briscoe, who was the first African-American quarterback, man, to play in the National Football League. You never heard about that because the Denver Broncos weren't getting that exposure. But you know what? When couple of years before I came into the league, right? The Broncos finally broke through and they had a winning season because you had the Kansas City Chiefs, right? And then you had the Oakland Raiders, who were guys that were, you know, making all the noise in the AFC West. And then you had the
criminals running around the field.
Well, they were. They let me tell you, they had monitors on their legs and all that time. John Matusak and those type of guys, you know, they were gouging people in the eyes and stuff. And Jack Tatum called himself the assassin. So yeah, you had some bad boys over there. But so and that was those were the teams that we had to beat to overcome to be relevant, right? In the AFC West or in the National Football League. And so when I got here to the Denver Broncos, I was drafted out of the University of Minnesota in the 4th round. Myself, Louis Wright, Bob Swinson, we had a great Steve Foley. We had a great draft class at that particular time. Now remember, and the Broncos had, they were winning. They had broke through and they started winning. Now all of a sudden, people are talking about the Broncos. Hey, there's a team there in Denver. They've won. They've done some winning, but they haven't gone to a playoff. They haven't won a Super Bowl. So they're just there. They might beat the Raiders, man, maybe once or twice, or Kansas City once or twice, but they're not making any noise. But let me tell you, after they won, I think they went 7-5. After they won, we came in. Myself, Louis Wright, like I said, that 75 draft, we filled in some spots. Louis Wright was a shutdown corner, number 1 draft choice. Reuben Carter, man, in that 3-4 defense. He was the stabilizer, man, that he demanded double team to keep people off of Randy Gradishar, and he was just fierce. Then you had Randy Gradishar. Then you had Barney Chavis. I mean, you had Lyle Alzado. We had the defense. All-timer. Let me tell you, that defense, that Orange Crush defense was absolutely nice. Then we had our offense. Our offense, man, we were capable. Once again, Charlie Johnson. I came in under Charlie Johnson, if you remember. And then you had the M&M connection with Craig Morton when he came in. And then you had that great defense we had. And then in 1977, we break through and we go to the Super Bowl, right? Yeah, we filled it. We filled in the spots that the team needed at that particular time in 1977. And then all of a sudden, we're relevant now. We beat the Oakland Raiders. We beat the Kansas City Chiefs. We beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now we're relevant, and now we're getting the media to look at us here there in the Rocky Mountains and says, they got something going, guys. Let's keep our eye on them in that whole deal. And then from that point on, we were very successful. John Elway, Dan Reeves, they went to 3 Super Bowls, didn't win it. Then John with Mike Shanahan eventually went to the Super Bowl and won it. So that's the story. That's the story. And the fan base here, man, always stuck with the Denver Broncos organization, with the players. They were always with us. They were not fly-by-night, man. They stuck with us through thick and thin, guys.
Yeah. It's absolutely amazing. The history, it's one of my favorite, NFL stories. Just the creation of the team, them getting in to the NFL, all the years of hardship that they went through, and then they get a few pieces and they keep building, and then they eventually get to what it was 7 Super Bowls.
Yes, absolutely.
Up to 50. So it's absolutely incredible, and it's amazing that you're one of the people who really transformed not just the Denver Broncos, but the game of football as a whole. You were one of those key elements of the transformation of the sport going into this next generation. Special teams was such a big part, and you were a massive part of that. So thank you.
Yeah, well, I was always taught, I come from the great state of Ohio State Buckeyes, go Buckeyes, you know what I'm saying? And so, we were taught good football. And I know my chiropractic buddy, Mario's dad, man, he was from Ohio. So we always talk smack to people, man, when Ohio State was kicking butt and all that type of stuff. So, I was taught well. My coaches, man, always told me, they said, Rick, be a Swiss knife. You always want to be able to be on the field. And, whether it's, centering a ball, or whether it's blocking somebody, or whether catching a ball or running the ball, you want to be on the field. So make yourself available. And I tried to do that. And I tried to make that a part of my game for sure. And, to be able to come in and help this organization and help this franchise to become a winner, I am thankful. I'm grateful. And also, guys, let me tell you, the Denver Broncos, if not for Floyd Little, right? If not for Floyd Little going out, door to door and talking to the fans and that type of stuff, man, and that whole deal, the Broncos were getting ready to be sold. They were going to be there, right? And then the Phippses were able to come up with the money, man, for the fans to be able to stay there in Denver. So, folks, man, be grateful, man, that you had some players, man, that stepped out and said, hey, we're going to keep the Denver Broncos in Denver because they were about to be sold, guys.
That's unbelievable that an NFL player is going door to door trying to sell this fan base on the sport of football. Like, could you imagine if we were dealing with that today and you got guys like Cortland Sutton and Bo Nix just going door to door, be like, hey, you should check us out. We're pretty good.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Rick, like they were flying. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I mean, that's true, though. I mean, you have to build your fan base, right there in that Rocky Mountain region. If you're going to be able to sell tickets, once again, back then you had to sell tickets because you didn't have the media that they have today. And remember, the Phippses, they ran a construction company. And so that construction company's, just a small business. And so you definitely had to get the fan base from around the region, New Mexico, Wyoming, Western Kansas, Western Nebraska, Arizona, Utah. You had to get that fan base, man, to come in and sell those tickets so that you could pay the players and meet your bills.
Yeah.
And now you fast forward to now, Rick, and there's like a 70,000 plus person wait list to become a season ticket holder. And you know what I think the Walton Penner group needs to do? They need to go back to people like you, Rick, who started this grassroots movement towards the Denver Broncos, and they need to give you some royalties or something to understand that, like, you really were one of the people that jump-started being one of the most perennially good fan bases in the NFL. Because if it's not for you guys doing stuff like that and laying the groundwork, then we're certainly not sitting where we are today, and we can't claim one of, if not the best fan bases in the NFL. And I think that's really fascinating. Like, I knew a little bit about that, but never to that extent, to the point where you guys were going door to door. And so you wonder, like, where this – like, it's not just fandom, right? Like, it becomes a part of you and like a part of your personality. And now you understand why, because it's this personal relationship that you develop to become a fan. Where, like, the Broncos are part of your family.
Even after the games, Mario and Pat, after the games, the guys now, they're so protected when they come out of the tunnels and all that stuff. We didn't have that protection. You know what we do? We would come out of the tunnel, man, after the game in that hotel. We would go probably out to one of the RVs, man, and sit out there, man, with some of the fans and have some doggone liquor, man, in that hotel after getting our asses whipped. You know what I'm saying? We're like, hey, man, let me get some numbing oil. You know what I'm saying? And so we sit there and get numbed up so that we could drive home, man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man. That's awesome.
So that's what we did. I mean, we were door to door. We knew the grandparents. We knew the parents. We knew the kids.
Though.
That's what it's all about, though, man. That's the fun part. And even today, the folks, man, that were in our era, they still say, man, I remember, man, when you came to my house and you sat down and had dinner with us. I remember when you went out and played catch with my kids out in the yard or at their school and that type of stuff. That's what it's all about. These guys today are so protected in that whole deal, right? Yeah. But once again, for us, we weren't making that type of money to be protected. We said we have to get out so that these folks can come to the game so that we can make some money. So you know what I'm saying? So hey, man, it's a totally different atmosphere. But, we were glad to do it. And like I said, today, we still have folks, man, that I know. And they talk about when we sat at their table, man, and had dinner.
That's that community, right? Like, I can only imagine what it had to have been like. You're watching these other teams. You mentioned the Steelers, the Cowboys, the Bears, like these long-standing franchises that have a built-in fan base and everything like that. And you're having to really scrounge and draw up that interest in the community. But I think part of building up that fan base to what it is now is that sense of, like, these are our Broncos. This is our community. Like, each one of these players, it doesn't matter who it is a part of our community. They're just like the rest of us. And I think that feeling needs to come back a little bit. I know they get out and do stuff in the community every now and then, but it's not the same.
Yeah, well, the fans would always say, you know what? When I would hear your name on TV, I could tell people I know him. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
It's personal. It's a personal thing. That's what it's all about. And even for us, like I said, even for us today, to honestly say we have the best fans in the National Football League is a true one.
Yeah.
It's not fake. It's the true thing because they supported us through thick and thin. And it's been sold out for the last 50 years, 50 some odd years?
Decades.
Yeah. Look at our road presence. Look at our away games. How much orange is in those stadiums? Pete Carroll said it in his press conference that the Raiders need to get more people into that stadium. You're just going to keep seeing a lot of orange in that stadium, Pete. Sorry to say, but there's going to be a lot of orange.
Absolutely, but then after 77, guys, when we weren't picked to win in 77, guys. We weren't. We were picked to in the middle of the pack. Oakland Raiders were the champions, right? San Diego was coming of age with Eric Coryell over there in San Diego. Dan Fouts and that crew, and then you had Seattle, who was a fledgling that were coming in. And they were tough over there with Jim Zorn and that whole deal, and the Kansas City Chiefs, they're world champions as well with Hank Stram. So that 77 year, what we looked at 9-5 the year before in 76, right? And we just missed out on the playoffs, and so 77 was our year, guys, and we put it together, won 6 straight, right? Then we lost to the Raiders when they came to Denver. Then we ran off 6 straight more and that whole deal and got to the Super Bowl and won the AFC West for the first time in that whole deal. So, guys, that was a year of winning. We said we're going to put our stamp on the National Football League, that we're winners and we're going to be consistent, because the next year we didn't win, go back to the Super Bowl, but we did win the AFC West again. And then we went to the playoffs again. So we started the footprints, man, of winning for the John Elways to go on and win the championship. That's for sure. And so I always want to let folks know, hey, man, when you're talking to us guys, man, from the 70s, hey, this is why these guys are where they're at today. Check out the records. You'll understand.
Yeah, you guys started the winning culture. Like I had said, the Broncos were kind of a perennial loser up until like 77 and like the couple of years that preceded that. And obviously there are a lot of more youthful, younger Bronco fans now. I mean, the publication that we're with, Rick, the Let's Talk Broncos little logo down here in the corner, half the people that work for that publication, they weren't even alive when John Elway won the Super Bowl in 97, 98. I mean, shoot, I wasn't alive in 77 and, back when they went to their first couple of Super Bowls.
Don't lie, Mario.
Unfortunately, I never got to see you play live. And so I think it's important that you were here kind of like giving fans a history who, a lot of these guys, a lot of people watching the show right now, I'm telling you, probably weren't around for that or don't really remember how it went. But it was really like your teams that you were on where the winning culture truly started in Denver, and the Broncos became like a legitimate force in the league. And so now it's finally continued. So like that 77 team kind of feels a little bit like the team that we had this year in the terms of there weren't a lot of expectations, and they exceeded all of those expectations, and they're starting to trend in the right direction. So from what you saw this year, Rick, because I know you still love the game, you watch all of the games, what did you think of this season for the Denver Broncos? Like, give us a Rick Upchurch breakdown.
Well, folks were asking me, hey, how do you think the Broncos are going to do? I said, look, let me give you some information. Sean Payton's a good coach. Now, I don't care what anybody says. He knows how to win. He's been there. He understands. But what you have to do is you got to get all the pieces to the puzzle. Yeah. And when he got there, he didn't have all the pieces to the puzzle to what he needed and what he wanted to run his offense and to build the culture that he wanted. And that's the big thing. And when you build the culture that you want, then you get buy-in from the players, right? Because if you don't get all the players to buy into your culture, then that's almost like a weak link in the chain, right? The chain will break in that whole deal. Once again, I don't think what's my kid, the quarterback that just left, Russell Wilson. I don't think Russell Wilson and him had good chemistry. No, and that wasn't going to work. And it was good for Russell to leave and then to go get a young quarterback talented as Bo Nix is, to come in and try to run that offense and that whole deal. Folks were asking me, well, how are the Broncos going to do? Are they going to be okay? And I said, look, you got to understand, look, it's like a cake, right? You get the cake, you get the powder, and you pour it in a bowl. Then you add the ingredients, right? You add the egg, you add the water, and you add all the ingredients. It's still not a cake. You still got to beat the cake. You got to beat the batter. It's still not a cake. Yep. Then what you got to do, man, is you got to pour it in the pan, right? Pour it in the pan. And then what you got to do is set the oven at the temperature that you say and put it in the oven and let it bake for 35 seconds or 35 minutes in that whole deal, and then pull it out. It's a cake. I said, guys, it's going to take time for them to come together. But once they come together, they're going to be tough to beat. They're going to be scary. And what happened? I said, Bo Nix, man, is going to find his way because he's that type of kid, and he's a mature quarterback. He's older than the normal rookie coming out of college, and he came out of a great program. Yeah. He came out of a program that's almost like a pro program anyway, right?
Thank you.
And so, hey, once you let those kids come together and that whole deal, I said they're going to be awful good. Patrick Surtain and Marvin Mims and all of those guys were going to be, and Benito and all those guys. I said once they come together with all that energy, they're going to be tough to beat. And I said, look at where they're at right now. They're getting ready to, get into the playoffs, and they got into the playoffs. They didn't win against a good Buffalo team, but man, they got a taste of it, and teams better watch out next year.
Amen. Rick, you mentioned Marvin Mims, and like I said, I was watching a little bit of you last night to mentally prepare myself for your absolute greatness, and I just couldn't help when I was watching think, man, Marvin Mims reminds me a little bit of Rick Upchurch. Do you see any similarities between the way that Marvin Mims plays this game, especially talking about in the return game? And then how he's used in the offense as kind of that like slot chess piece. Do you see any similarities between the two of you in that sense?
Marvin Mims is a playmaker. He's the guy, man, you need to get the ball in his hands any way you possibly can get into his hands at least 15 to 18 times because he's dynamic.
Amen.
I love him. And last year, folks were calling me and asking me about, him and this, that, and the other. Now the touchdown came, man, when they were getting their asses whipped 72 to 14 or something like that. Right?
We'll talk about that.
You understand what I'm saying?
We like that from our memories. That game never happened.
Yeah, and so I was like, well, that's all well and good in that whole deal. And folks were calling me and said, well, more Marvin Mims, blah, blah, blah. And I says, well, I need to see more. I remember my first year, man, my rookie year, man, I returned 40 kickoff returns for 1,000 yards. Ooh. And I also returned 27 punt returns for over 300 yards in that whole deal, which was the third most in the National Football League as a rookie, as my rookie year. So when I watched him, I said, this kid, man, he really does. It looked like he can get some stuff, and he's a game breaker. And when I said that to him, I met him, and I told him, I said, I want to see more. Everybody's calling me and all that old type of stuff. I said, I want to see more. And then maybe I'll say some stuff to you, bro, but I need to see more. This year, homeboy said, man, I'm going to show everybody who I am.
Bet that, right?
And I'm with him. Hey, this kid, man, he's dynamic. Yeah, he's a game breaker.
Speaking of, sorry, go ahead, Pat.
Oh, I was going to say, just like, watching you return kicks and then watching Marvin return kick, the patience, the burst, the top end speed that both of you have, it's like your game, like you said, game changing, right? So to have that, to have him not even from the offensive aspect, just in the special teams aspect.
Yeah, absolutely.
If he can be a fraction of Rick Upchurch in the return game, we got him.
Oh yeah, well, that once again, remember the game of football is three principles, right? Yeah. You got what? Offense, defense, and offense. And offense, special teams changes momentum. And we've seen, man, with special teams, you can either win or lose with them, right?
Yes.
Because a kicker does what? Wide right, wide left. You know what I'm saying?
Boink.
or a punt returner, man, fumbles the ball, giving the offense positive, yardage in that whole deal, or putting the defense in a bad situation. So that's what I tell people. You got to understand how important, man, special teams is in your winning, for sure.
Absolutely.
And I know you were talking about all of the kicks and punts that you return, Rick. What Glenn wants to know, can you please describe your favorite touchdown return from the moment it left their foot to you crossing the goal line? Now, you had a lot of return touchdowns, Rick. Did you have a favorite one that's still like you close your eyes at night and you just see it on replay?
Well, I can. It was against San Diego, and I think it was in like 1978 or 79, and we were losing to San Diego, and they had been kicking the ball. His name was West. His last name was West. Their punter, and he was punting the ball out of bounds because they didn't want me to touch the ball. And just so happens, man, the ball. We're in the fourth quarter. He punts the ball, and the ball comes off his foot, and it stays in bounds. And I break it for 78 yards on him, man, in that whole deal. And we ended up winning that game, man. That man, let me tell you something. That was juice. That really was juice, man, in that whole deal. And because San Diego, man, they were our rival as well. And so to beat them, Kellen Winslow, Dan Fowles, John Jefferson, and those guys, man, in that game, man, let me tell you something. That was big. And I just felt so good. The guys, man, were throwing me around in the locker room. And the whole deal, man. Yeah, it was great. That's the one that I really, really remember. But I had so many. I had 8 of them. And
that's a lot.
I had 10 actually. 2 of them were called back. But once again, I loved it, guys. I did it my whole life. Mm-hmm. I did it, man, as a young kid, man, back at home. I did it in junior high. I loved it because it was exciting and everybody would get juiced up. You know what I'm saying? And I said, man, if I can juice the team up, man, shoot, I found my spot. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Rick, what was your mentality? Like, let's say, punt team goes out there, and you're waiting for that ball to be snapped. Sure. What's your mentality in those situations? Because I trying to teach kids to catch punts and return punts is really tough because they're thinking about all these different things in their head. Walk us through your mindset before you catch that ball.
First and foremost, Pat, is this. Like I said, I've been doing it a long time. I put pride into it, and when I say put pride into it, when I go out and I practice, I put a lot of time into it in practice. Amen. I would catch 50 man before practice, and I would catch 50 balls after practice. They would kick them all kinds of ways into the sideline, short, nose down, nose over, and that whole deal. I would turn my back and just hear the ball come off their foot so I could turn around and locate it. So for me, honestly and truthfully, I put work into it. So I wasn't worried about catching the ball and that type of stuff, man. And that was because I was confident in it, in how I practiced it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? A lot of guys don't practice it. And then when they get out there, man, in certain situations, when the wind's blowing, right? Mm-hmm. All of a sudden now they're not as good, right? And so it didn't bother me. And then also, man, and during our meetings in that whole deal, our special teams meetings, along with the Coach Folsfoot, who was one of our special teams coaches, I was always active in the meetings on what I was going to do or how we were going to set it up and those type of things. So we were all together and what the plan was in that whole deal. And so the guys, they understood that all we needed to do was just shade somebody. I don't need to block them. I just need to shade somebody and give him an opportunity to run. Because if you remember, I was a running back in college and in high school. So I could use those instincts and cut off of people, man, and get into the hole and use my speed. And so, so I prepared, guys. I did. I always came prepared. And once again, my buddy, my chiropractic guy, Nelson Vetanze, I would always see him every week. And he says, he would always talk to me, says, Rick, once again, you got to stay, man, studied up, man, so that, man, nothing surprises you. And that's what he always told me, that let nothing surprise you.
Man, are you ever surprised, Rick?
No, never. I was never surprised. Never surprised. And I always, man, said to myself, I got the upper hand. And I would always talk to the return, I'd fair catch a ball and they come running down, talking smack in that whole deal. I said, you guys are about to lose your job.
Wild.
Hey, man, y'all about to lose your job, man.
Hey, you got to let them know.
This trash talk that you can hit somebody with.
Got to let them say no, man. Rick, so what was the hardest hit that you took? I got to know.
Oh,
Sorry,
man.
Mario. What was the hardest hit that you took?
It was the first time I touched the ball in the National Football League against Kansas City, man. They split my helmet, dude. If you look at my helmet, man, I didn't have an emblem on the side of it until after halftime because, man, I was returning the kickoff return and against Kansas City. And, this is my first time in the league and I'm juiced up and it's the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't understand the rivalry, right?
Yeah.
So they kick off, Jan Stenru kick off. I get the ball and, man, I could see the goalposts. I'm like, oh, man, the first time I touched this thing, I'm getting ready to go. And I turned on the Jets and, man, it was a car wreck, man. I said, oh, my freaking God. I mean, Little came over.
Do you remember?
Huh?
Do you remember who hit you?
It was a bunch of guys. And
it was a group tackle.
Yeah, my helmet was like this. I was looking through the ear hole. My lip was cut. I had a big knot on my eye, and I was concussed, man. I was concussed. Gosh. They walked me over to the sideline, man, in that whole deal, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I said, "This is the National Football League, dude." Oh. So that was my first taste of a National Football League. My very first time I touched the ball, bro.
Oof.
They hit you with the smelling salts. That was their concussion test.
Oh,
yeah. Get the smelling salts. Get back out there.
How many? Well, there's 9 there. Okay, you all right?
Close enough.
Yeah.
Like they just got to get in the ballpark. As long as they can see something.
As long as they can see
we're holding up any fingers, we're good.
Yeah, let's get you ready for next week, okay?
Exactly. So obviously, Rick, this is the most excited that the Bronco fans have been over a rookie quarterback. Honestly, probably since John Elway. Yeah. And in case anybody doesn't know, you played with John when he was a rookie. You were one of the receivers. And so I want to ask you, really just to put things into perspective. Most Bronco fans, Rick, they understand that Bo Nix has a bright future, even though a lot of fans weren't excited about the draft pick when it first happened because they were told by these quote-unquote experts that Bo Nix is a second-round talent. There were still a lot of very critical Bronco fans throughout the course of the season. Rick, I saw fans, and Pat can attest to this. Week 1, week 2, week 3, he's off to a slow start. He's struggling, and everybody's like, "We're cooked. He's no good. Right. We're in trouble. That was such a waste of a draft pick." And Rick, honestly, it was just like he had this record-breaking rookie year, and if it wasn't for Jaden Daniels being as unbelievable as he was, Bo Nix is the only rookie quarterback that's being talked about right now, right? So I want you to give the perspective for these people who, up until week 18, up until the playoff game, since the playoff game, because they only put up 7 points in a playoff game, there's still people that don't believe in Bo Nix or they don't appreciate what he just did. So because you were with John his rookie year, I just want you to shed some light for these people. What kind of quarterback was John Elway his rookie year? What was it like playing with him? Because you were kind of one of the stalwart players that had been there, done that when John came into the league.
Yeah, John, very talented. We knew about him, man, coming out of Stanford, and the numbers that he had were outstanding. That's at the college level. But then you come into the professional level, everybody's good. In college, you might have some fall off there in that whole deal, and you'll have a good game against a team that's just don't match up with you very well, right? In the National Football League, there's not a lot of teams that don't match up very well because they're all very good. And I remember John, in his very first game, man, he was just bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. But even in practice, right? We're up in training camp, and John's throwing bombs, man, and he's throwing that ball, man, and he's fitting it in there. But the thing about it, he threw the ball so hard. If you remember, he was a baseball player as well and was drafted by the Yankees. So John didn't have very much touch at 12. 15, 16 yards in that whole deal. He was throwing the ball and was on you so fast in that whole deal. So we had to tone him down. John, you can't throw the ball like that, man, in that whole deal. Because once again, he couldn't read the defenses that quickly, right? And then when you go against the number ones, our Orange Crush defense, and that whole deal, yeah, they're reading everything that you're doing as a rookie, and they're picking off all kinds of stuff. So now he's trying to fit everything in, right? He's trying to fit everything in because he did a couple of times. He went against our number ones in that whole deal. Naturally, they couldn't tackle him and beat him up, but he went against them. But those defensive backs, Louis Wright and all those guys, ate him up, right? No doubt. And so now all of a sudden he comes back and he says, "Man, these guys are fast and they're good." I said, "Absolutely, John." I said, first and foremost, we're not going to catch a ball for you, man, until you take some pepper off the ball, especially when we're running outs and slants and stuff like that. Now, if we're running deep, throw that bad boy out there and make us go after in that whole deal. But don't be eating us up, man, at 12 yards, 12-yard out or hitches in that whole deal. And he still didn't get it. I mean, he really didn't get it because he couldn't read the defenses, right?
Yeah.
And so he says, "Man, I got to get it in there. John, anticipate me coming into the hole. Put it into the hole. I'll get into the hole and I'll make the reception in that whole deal, right?"
Yeah.
John he didn't get that. But eventually he did. Pittsburgh game, Steve DeBerg had to come in and save us. Pittsburgh was blitzing him from every angle, from every place you could think about in that whole deal. And then he said, "Look, guys, be patient with me." John said, "Be patient with me. I'll get this. I'll be all right." Steve DeBerg comes in. He leads us down the field and leads us to victory. That's the difference between a veteran and then a rookie coming into the league. Now, when you talk about John Elway and Bo Nix, once again, Bo Nix had the fanfare, right? But guys, you got to understand, with Bo Nix, he didn't get any time with the number ones in preseason. The number ones didn't even see the field. Yeah. If you remember.
Yeah.
Well, when you don't get some time out there with the number ones, maybe a couple of drives, put together a couple of drives. So did you get used to the wide receiver speed when they're cutting, getting that coordination together? The offensive line, they got to, get their stuff together. The offensive line didn't play their number ones. And if they did, they might have played maybe a series. So guys, how important it is for your number ones to get time in so that you have timing. Their preseason games were the first 4 games of the season.
Yeah.
And then they had to eliminate stuff out of the playbook.
Yeah. It was very different.
And narrow down the playbook for this young man in that whole deal of what works and what doesn't work and what he's comfortable with. So folks who don't understand the game of football, you got to, take football 201 so that you understand how this thing works. It's not where this kid is going to come in automatically and be successful. It doesn't happen often. Look at Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning wasn't that successful when he went to Indy. So, folks, have patience. This is not microwave, man. You have to have the opportunity for everything to come together, the offensive line, the defensive line, and the quarterback to get comfortable with the system that he's in.
Yes.
And Rick, at least Bo didn't line up behind the guard at any point during his rookie year.
No.
Go ahead.
I
tell my buddy, my buddy is a Broncos fan, and the whole season he was talking to me about Bo, and he's just like, "Oh, this guy's a bust." Yeah. And I tell him all the time, my guy, if we were to go back to John Elway's rookie season, you would be talking the exact same way. And look at how his career changed throughout the years. He became a completely different player. Yes. Bo Nix is older than most rookie quarterbacks traditionally, but we saw what he could do with the shell of this roster that he had. No run game, no real Z in the offense, no guy that can beat man coverage consistently, no true tight end threat. All of the things that make a Sean Payton offense what it is, the things that Drew Brees was so successful with in New Orleans, Bo doesn't have that yet.
Not yet.
It could come.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing. We've got 5 years of this guy. This was just year one.
Well, Pat, it's about our fan base, man, being patient sometimes.
Yes.
And that's what I tell them all the time when I talk with them. You have to be patient. And I said, if you're not patient, then you go take the clipboard and the whistle and you go down there and you make it happen. Honestly and truthfully, man, if you can do a better job, then you go take the job from Sean Payton and make it happen. Go take the job from Bo Nix and make it happen. Because you're going to
trigger a lot of dummies on Twitter, Rick. You better be careful. You're going to trigger a lot of dum-dums.
You know what? I can handle it. I've had the heat, man, from millions of people, so it doesn't bother me any. But especially when you tell the truth. When you tell the truth, because you've been in it and in that whole deal, then I'll debate you anytime.
Mm-hmm. It's not easy playing quarterback either. We have to understand that man was out there doing literally everything that he could to help this team win.
Just the play calls alone, you got to get that out of your mouth.
Yep.
And then you got to know what everybody's doing.
And then you got to read a defense.
Then you got to anyway. Like I said,
you have to do it really, really, really quick. Process. Boom, boom, boom.
Timeout.
Yeah. And then you got a bunch of wild dogs that are nipping at your heels.
Rabid animals. Yeah. Miles Garrett is staring at you. He's going side to side with the center. You don't know which way he's going to go.
But guys, this is a program. This is a team that's going to do nothing but get better. And they got to add couple of more pieces to the puzzle and that whole deal. And once they add those pieces, man, I believe that they're going to get into the playoffs. They had a taste of it this year against a very good Buffalo team, right? It wasn't very good. A very good Buffalo team. So they got to understand, man, how to hang in there, man. When you're in that second season, and that you got to play flawlessly, right? You can't lay the ball down. You got to, man, move the chains, man, on that third down, and you got to catch that ball. You know what I'm saying? Now you got to the things that you did during the regular season, you got to amplify it and be better, because now you're playing the best of the league, and they're not going to make too many mistakes, and you got to be better than them when you get into the playoffs.
Well said. My goodness. Whew.
Can they hire you, Rick? Are you looking for like a coaching job or just like a
consulting job?
Man, you could be Flavor Flav to them. Like they need some Rick Upchurch in there.
You know what? Like I said, I've been back there. When the alumni come back and we go over to the training camp and that whole deal. I've had an opportunity, to talk to a few of the ball players and that whole deal. I don't get in the way too much in that whole deal, because I don't want conflicting information going to them and in their head and that type of stuff, and that type of stuff. But when I have the opportunity to talk to a guy like Marvin Mims or talk to some of the kids, Patrick Surtain and that whole deal, I'll talk to them and just let them know that, look, we started the winning tradition here, bro, and that's what we do. And I don't expect anything different out of you guys, man, in that whole deal. We're going to hold you to a high standard, because we did it. We held ourselves to a high standard, and you guys, man, have to hold yourself to a high standard. Hey, man, winning is what we do around here. And so you guys, man, play hard, play tough, play clean, man, but go out there, man, and kick ass. That's what I tell them.
And you can say that, Ray, because again, you've been there, done that, and you guys were the ones that laid the winning foundation for this organization. Sure. Now, speaking of all of that, and back in the day, Rick, one of the things that I'm most looking forward to, and that a lot of people watching are most looking forward to hearing from you, are just some stories from the heyday, from the 1970s Denver Broncos, like some behind the scenes stuff that we otherwise may never have heard about. Like, it's not in a book, it's not common knowledge. So just enlighten us.
Don't have to name names,
some stories, Rick.
You can use initials.
Well, training camp was the spot, man, where stuff is going on. You got the rookies, you got the veterans, man, and we're locked up, man, in some dorms and all that stuff. So, we got to get real nuts and stuff of that nature. But let me tell you, we had some characters, man, that just did stuff that was absolutely stupid. What they would do, man, is, get a bag of poop and that whole deal, and light the bag, man, and put it next to your door, man, and that whole deal. And they fire, pull the fire alarm, and you come out and you're stepping on it, and you're like, what the frick, man? It's horse crap and all that type of stuff, Randy Gradishar, and Randy won't. He's okay, but Randy was the big culprit of that. And or either he would open your door, man, and throw a stink bomb in there, man, and that would in your room, and that stuff would get into your room, and it wouldn't leave. It's there for the whole training camp type of thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's just stuff like that, guys. But the number one thing for me was when Tom Jackson, when we finally beat the Oakland Raiders 30-7 in Oakland in 1977, and Louis Wright intercepted the ball and went down for a touchdown in that whole deal. Tom Jackson ran by John Madden and said, "It's over. It's done. Man, it's done. It's over." and what could he say? You know what I'm saying? I said, Tom. Tom, good job.
Hilarious.
Now here's a guy who I wish wouldn't have come over and talked to me. Glenn wants to know, Rick, what's the craziest Lyle Alzado story that you can tell? Now, obviously, Lyle had a little bit of reputation as let's just call him Cuckoo Banana Pants. So, what do you got in terms of Lyle Alzado stories?
Lyle, my friend, man. Lyle, my dog. Yeah. He when I got there, man, he and I clung together in that whole deal because he loves Soul Train. He loves disco. And because he was from New York, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So homeboy had that swag, you know what I'm saying, and that whole deal. And he loved Soul Train. He loved it, man. And so sometimes we would act like we was doing Soul Train and dancing and that type of stuff and that whole deal. And one day, man, he got into a fight, right? He got into a fight. He's out there, man. It's like two buffaloes, fighting, him and Claudie Minor, dust flying everywhere, right? They're battling and that. And then so they can't calm him down. And they said, "Well, Rick, you go over and calm him down. He likes you." And I'm like, "Dang on, man. That's like asking me to go over like a Chihuahua to a Rottweiler, man." And so I went over. I said, "Lyle," I said, "You okay, man? You okay?" And he's cussing and he's fussing and he's throwing around. And he's swole up and that. I said, "Hey, Lyle. Hey, man, look, watch this. Let's do some Soul Train, man. Soul Train." And he brought him all the way down, man. He says, "Rick, yeah." And I said, "Man, Soul Train. Remember Soul Train?" So yeah. And then the other one is this, guys, and then I'll be done. Lyle, man, beat up one of our defensive backs. I wasn't there, but this is the story that I do know, that Lyle beat up one of our defensive backs, beat him up pretty bad in that whole deal. This kid went home, man, and out to Montbello, and went home, and he got his piece, and he called a cab back, man, to the facility, and he kicked the door in at the facility, man, looking for Lyle, getting ready to do some business, man, in that whole deal. And luckily they were in film. Luckily they were in film meeting, right? They were in a film meeting, that whole deal. So when he came in out of the light, he couldn't really see. Yeah. And so Lyle, man, hit the floor, man, and crawled out of the room in that whole deal. And this guy, man, he held on to that gun. He was looking for Lyle to actually do some damage to him. That's how Haven Moses. God. Yeah, and that's how Haven Moses, came to the Denver Broncos from the Buffalo Bills. And so, yeah, Lyle could get really vicious and do some stuff. But that day, I think he was getting ready to meet his maker.
That's insane. That's actually a crazy story.
Yeah, I know. Who you telling, man? Everybody's hitting the floor.
What in the world?
Man.
Absolutely.
Can you say who came back with the piece, Rick?
No, I'm not going to.
Okay, fair. That's fair.
Implicate the man.
Yeah.
I know, right? I'd feel weird if I didn't ask.
Mario.
Yeah, man. But he came back. He said, "Oh, you like to beat up on people, huh?" He said, "Okay."
Oh my God.
He said, "Okay."
And he walked all the way from the facility out to Montbello.
Oh, see, that's lunatic behavior right there. Man didn't even call a cab or something.
No, he said, "Man, I'm walking." He said, "I'll be back."
Oh, he goes, I'm gonna earn this one.
Yeah, he was just talking to himself the whole way there and the whole way back.
And then he called a cab back, And he said, man, let me out here, dog. I'm good.
You would think after that long ass walk, Rick, he would have calmed down a little bit. No, he held on to that hatred for a long ass time.
Oh yeah, man. So those are the stories that I do know, man. It's some crazy. There's so many, man, in that whole deal. We had such a great time there in Denver. We go down into Glendale, man. And that's where we go to the turn of the century. We go to the lift. We go to the mining company, and that's where we would hang out. And Lyle eventually, man, bought a club down in Cherry Creek, man, in that deal where we would go. Remember, I told you he loved the disco in that deal. He ended up buying. He ended up buying a. It was Alzados in Cherry Creek. That's awesome. Yep. So yeah, man, so many stories. So much good times, man, in that whole deal. And remember, guys, we weren't making all that type of money in that whole deal. So what we would do is we would all hang together, man, and take care of one another in that whole deal, whether it be financially or watching each other's back. We were brothers. We were family.
Truly a family.
Yeah.
I mean, you always hear about like the locker room being a family. But
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I feel, like you said, it just being there for each other, especially when it's not these lucrative contracts.
That's right.
You're honestly just going to war for the love of the game. At that
point. We're trying to get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
We're like, hey man, there's a couple of more dollars, man, than in the playoffs, and we can get there. Shoot, I won't spend it all in one place, but shoot, I'll have a little bit more money.
Yeah, exactly. We're fighting for something.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was our mindset. We said, hey man, let's get a little bit more money. Baby needs some new shoes, man.
Amen. I love it. Dude.
Anything else that you wanna share, like from your playing days, or anything else that you want to talk about before we let you go? And we thank you so much again for your time,
honey. Can you get me that information? I'm going to be up in this weekend.
I got it right here for you, Rick.
Yeah. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So before we get Rick out of here, one of the reasons that we wanted to have him out, if you're wondering what to do for the Super Bowl weekend, obviously, as Bronco fans, we're depressed. Week in and week out, we gotta watch the Zebras give games to this obnoxious ass team from Kansas City. But if you're looking for something fun to do, to cleanse your soul and cleanse your spirit a little bit, on February 8th, Rick will be at the Delta Hotel in North Glen, Colorado. It's noon VIP, so it's a whole weekend of like festivities. So we're doing 1 to 2:30. There's a public signing. Rick will be signing autographs. $20 per signature, $10 per inscription. So that's all on Saturday, the day before the Super Bowl. There's a big party, right, Rick? Y'all hanging out. It's going to be a whole big event. And then for the actual Super Bowl, and I'm going to be honest, man, I don't really want to watch the Super Bowl. I'm going to because it's the Super Bowl. It's bumming me out, Rick. So if there's something, in some way, if there's anything that could cheer me up and raise my spirits during this fixed game that we're about to watch, it would be watching the Super Bowl with Rick Upchurch. And if you're a Broncos fan and that's not on your bucket list, then you need to update your bucket list. So there's a Super Bowl watch party, and that'll be at the Delta Hotel as well, right, Rick, up in North Glen?
Yes, that's where I'll be. I'll be up there signing that whole deal. And hey, man, like I said, we'll have some fun. I love our fans. I don't live there anymore. I live in Las Vegas, but when I do get there, man, I just love our fans, man. I love seeing them and meeting them and talking with them and that whole deal, man. So I hope that they come out. We'll have a good time, talk football, and sign autographs for them.
Love it. Get out
Absolutely.
there.
Anything else before we get you out of here, Rick?
You know what? Once again, hey, Mario, I love you dearly, man. I've been knowing you since you were in Pampers for sure. And Pat, it's an honor and a pleasure to be on here with you. I love you guys and your podcast. You guys just keep doing what you're doing. You do a great job, man.
No, thank you, Rick. You're a legend. Absolute legend.
That's the best endorsement that we could possibly get. Suck it, haters who want to talk about the show and talk crazy, because one of the greatest Denver Broncos in the history of the franchise gives us the stamp of approval. My name's Mario Vetanze. That's Patrick Chiotti, Rick Upchurch. the legendary. I'm out of words to describe you. Like I want to say legendary Rick, but it just doesn't feel like it does it justice. So we're just gonna say the incomparable Rick Upchurch. Thank you so much for joining us. To everybody, thank y'all for watching. Pat and I will be back next week to fill some more holes on the Denver Broncos roster. We love y'all. God bless. Bye-bye.
Hey, feel I'm in the mood for a switch up. I hit the function, hit the rose till I hiccup. I hit the stage and leave.